I've had the pleasure of interviewing Dani Shapiro, hosting her at events, and now thrilled to share her latest book. So many of her books are favorites of mine. Slow Motion, Family History, Black and White. I think I've read almost all these books. Devotion, which was one of my favorite memoirs ever. Still writing, and last time we spoke, it was The Hourglass. That was the last memoir. And now out today, this, there are not enough words for this one, Inheritance, a memoir of genealogy, paternity, and love, with Meg Walter's awesome quote here. This book reads like a beautiful lived novel, moving and personal and true. And I read it, I think, last summer. I was trying to remember. I just was blown away by the story. Your storytelling is always so gorgeous, so honest, and inspiring, and it's a thrill to have you back on Reading with Robin. Welcome, Dani Shapiro.
Thanks, Robin. It's great to be with you.
Wow. First of all, is this your dress on the cover?
You know, it is. The story of the cover was so, there's this great Yiddish word, beshert. It was like so meant to be. What happened was, when I was on book tour for Hourglass a couple years ago, I met this artist at an event in Princeton, New Jersey, and her name is Diana Waymar. And she is a fabric artist, and she takes items of people's clothing that are meaningful in some way, and she stitches sometimes sayings, sometimes, little images like into the fabric itself. And she was interested in whether I had any kind of clothing that I would just relinquish to her to do that with. And I immediately thought of this little dress that had been mine when I was a flower girl in a cousin's wedding.
Yes, it's so beautiful.
And it was in 2 layers, actually, this dress. It had an under layer, sort of like a little pinafore, and then a pinafore on top of it. It was satin, ice blue, actually, even though the cover, they changed the colors, but it was like an ice blue color. And I shipped it off to Diana. And then as I was working on Inheritance, every once in a while, Diana would send me photographs of the little dress and on her light box in her studio. And the first time, she was starting to work on it, but she hadn't worked on it yet, so it was just the dress draped over the light box. And as soon as she started sending me those photographs, I thought, oh, my God, this would be the most amazing book jacket.
Wow. Wow.
And in the end, that's what happened. It was just one of those iPhone shots of my little dress from all those years ago.
Is such a cool story. Well, we can end the interview right there. I have my question. It is beshert, and so did she send you back the dress? Is it finished with whatever she did to it?
No, I don't think she's finished. What she was doing was taking a photograph that I sent her of my dad and me. It's actually a photograph that was just published in Time magazine. It's just a beautiful color photograph of the 2 of us on the beach, and I'm this little kid, probably around the age as I was when I wore the dress, and I'm just laughing. It's and on his lap. It's a picture
I saw it. Yes, I did.
Pure joy. And she had the idea of sort of stitching that into the dress, which I thought would be incredible.
Wow, that is, and a real leap of faith to send the actual. I'd be like, well, can I deliver it? Where can I meet you? Are you bonded? That's my turn.
Right.
You're so trusting. No, I can't wait to see. I guess you'll post that at some point, or is that?
Oh yeah, whenever she's done with it, I will. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, and I just love that you're working on this book, and then that's happening, and I think it takes somebody with such just an insightful, thoughtful person to be connecting that as that's coming, okay, this is perfect and this works out with the book. I just love the whole thing. You pick this up and you want to know who's the little girl that wore that dress and what happened and what's the story. And you've told so many stories through the years, and your books are, I am always recommending them. And when people are asking for, certain things, it just seems to be that they're so connected to your storytelling in so many ways. So this book, Inheritance, which is just out, it's a memoir of genealogy, paternity, and love. And I think the love is just, that bond is so there. I mean, the love is on all of the pages. And, certainly start with the story, how it came to be, and how, there's so many things. But let's first tell the audience the story. I mean, there's no secrets that we're going to give away, and everybody will want to read this book. And visit DaniShapiro.com for more information. You can find Dani on Instagram, on Twitter, on Facebook. There are so many wonderful essays that are coming out now about, when the books come out, there are essays around them. So it's like, I read the book already, so now I get to read some more of the essays. It's just so fascinating on so many levels. And if this book doesn't make you think, I don't know what book will. So where do we start with Inheritance?
Yeah, I mean, well, one thing I'll say, actually, because some readers already have been saying things like, I don't want any spoiler alerts, that kind of thing. And
spoiler.
I actually, just the other day I wrote on Facebook, there are no spoilers because, the what happened is, just outside in crazy, intense story. But the book is not about what happened. The book is about why and how. It's about the much deeper. I mean, in a way, when I was writing it, I had to be very aware of not like breathlessly telling the sort of, detective story that is a part of the book, as much as slowing it down. And but I'll get to that. But I just wanted to say for anyone who's listening that you don't have to really. It's not going to stop your enjoyment of the book.
Oh, no, absolutely.
To know what the story is.
Right, because I guess I kind of had a sense of that anyway,
Right.
I mean, my own ideas, and then, it's just, it's just a book that you want to sit down with and you want to tell everybody, leave me alone, because I have reading to do, and I want to really, I reread pages, makes you think about other stories in your own life and all of this, so,
thank you.
Right, so no spoilers. Yeah.
Right. So about 3 years ago, my husband became interested in doing a home DNA test. One of those sending away for one of those testing kits, and he asked me if I wanted to do it too. And truthfully, I really wasn't interested. I really didn't have any curiosity about my family tree because I knew it. I was, very aware of, where I came from, both on my mother's side and my father's side, particularly my father's side because he came from a family that was very interested in its own history, and there were many photographs and many portraits and even video going all the way back to the ancestral village in Poland in the shtetl, before the war. And it was a family whose stories had always been very important to me and that I felt very, very connected to. So anyway, I wasn't really interested, but I said yes, which now I think about a lot and I'm very haunted by the idea that if I had said no, I never would have made the really shocking discovery that I made, which is that my father had not been my biological father. So when my test results came back from Ancestry.com, it revealed me to be 52% Eastern European Ashkenazi Jewish, which made no sense because both of my family, all of my family was from Eastern Europe, and all of them were Ashkenazi Jews, every last one of them. So that didn't make any sense. And then there were other clues, that not many, but just enough, just enough clues so that I was able to piece together the true story of my origins that had been kept from me for my whole life. Both of my parents were long dead when I made this discovery.
Yeah.
And I embarked on this odyssey, really, to understand everything I could about what had happened and to discover where I did come from.
It's just such an incredible thing to think you could have said, no, I'm not interested, or yes, I'm curious. like you said, like that moment of which way is this going to go. Was it something before Michael had even brought that up? Was that something you were ever even curious about or thought about?
Not in the least. Not in the least. I had no, as I said, I felt like I not because I wasn't curious. I've written about family my whole life.
Sure.
I've written, I had written 4 memoirs, a lot of which was about my family, particularly my father and his family. But I felt that I knew.
Yeah.
I felt that I knew, at least on that level, what my roots were.
So there you go, and then you get this information back, and it is so interesting. And I'm speaking with Dani Shapiro. You can visit her site at danishapiro.com, and we're talking about a brand new memoir called Inheritance, a memoir of genealogy, paternity, and love. And I don't remember the exact, back and forth of what you, when you were trying to figure out what would your parents have known, about the specific instances where this was the case. I don't want to say anything wrong or give out too much information about, what you find out and what you figure. But you put on your, the steps to get to who you want to speak to or how you want to figure things out. Was that a big puzzle to solve, or how did you go about going down that path?
Yeah, well, I think part of what's so was so shocking and in retrospect so kind of amazing and miraculous about it, although it certainly did not feel miraculous at the time, is that how quickly I was able to piece together that puzzle. And that's one of the things that I think a lot about. I mean, it's happening so often in our culture these days because of the combination of these DNA testing kits that are so easy to do, and they're not expensive, and the prices come down like every month, it seems, and also the internet that makes researching things so possible, that there are all of these secrets, family secrets, whether it's an illegitimate child or it's I don't think it's a huge spoiler to say that that I made, and you find this out very early in the book, that I made the discovery that my biological father had been a sperm donor, that my parents had been having trouble conceiving, and they ended up going to an institute in Philadelphia that was known for the donor insemination procedure. And back in those days, and indeed for many years to come, parents were told, never tell a soul, never tell anyone. The child will never know. There's no reason for the child to know. Who cares? It doesn't make a difference. And that was just the way that it was. So, and the donors were also told, no one will ever know. Your records will be your records will be destroyed. It's just you just have a number, and any identifying details all will be destroyed. And it was almost as if it exploded into nothingness, and basically it had never happened. It just didn't really happen, right?
Yeah.
And so the stunning thing about today, and this is happening right and left, it's happening constantly right now, is that there is this really interesting moment in time where the people who thought that these secrets would go to the grave with them are being confronted by their kids if they're still living. In my case, my parents were gone, but it's happening often with people whose parents are still living, and they're confronted suddenly with the secret that they've kept from their child or children about their child's identity, their very identity, for their entire lives. And then the donors who, were just young men, making some pocket change, who never thought they could ever be found, they're being found right and left. And so what happened for me was that it took a very, very, very short amount of time. It took 36 hours from the moment that I discovered that my dad had not been my biological father until I was able to identify my biological father, who's still living. He's a retired doctor in the Pacific Northwest, 78 years old, and there he was.
I loved reading all about that connection and how that came to be and the back and forth with you. And it is, so the PS is, if you have any secrets and you want to share them now.
Yeah, it's probably a good idea probably a good idea to come clean. And, I also think that, a couple of decades from now, the idea that we ever kept these kinds of secrets from each other is going to seem like the most ridiculous thing anybody's ever heard.
We'll see that, and that's like a whole other layer to the story. And the bigger part of the, your story is the story that you're sharing, which is incredible to read about and to follow that path, and then the ramifications really just in the bigger picture and through, well, like you say, all of these kids and people asking questions and finding out things. Because I think the thing about secrets, and certainly when you're reading a novel, it's always fascinating to me how the author decides where the secret's going to be and how to bury it so that it's not obvious and it's revealed, but that there are the secrets that are in our lives, some of them so buried that you almost can forget, like when parents didn't, sort of put this aside, or like you say, young sperm donors or whatever. It's like it never happened because it's never talked about and hasn't come up or doesn't come up, and you almost can feel like, you just forget, but it's still there.
Right, and it shapes things, even in its and to me that's actually one of the more powerful aspects of this. So there's, on the one hand, in the book, there's the story of what happens and the discovery and, the discovery of my biological father and what happens between us, which is certainly a part of the story and a pretty powerful part of the story. But the most powerful part of the story for me, as I was writing and exploring and thinking and kind of in a state of shock for a period of time and pretty traumatized, it's a lot to to discover that that you're not that you're not made of what you thought you were made of. It's a very destabilizing thing, and but I was just consumed with the question, what did my parents know?
Right.
Did they how buried was the secret for them? And trying to, there's a lot of reporting in the book. I talked to as many people who might have known something about the customs of that time, about the institute where I was conceived, friends of my parents and relatives of my dad's who I thought maybe might have known something. There was a period of time where I wondered whether everyone knew but me.
Well, that's a horrible feeling, I'm sure. Like, okay, right? Like everybody knows.
Open secret, right? And that wasn't the case at all in my case, although I've heard about other people where it is. But everybody, people were completely, without any kind of knowledge of that in my case. But then beyond that, was it something that my parents thought about and considered telling me? Consciously, did they stay up at night? And, I don't think so. I think that it was more buried than that for them, but it was something that they knew, on some level. And
on some level, right.
On some level. And also, I look a lot like my biological father, which is to say, I look like I come from Western Europe. I don't look like an Eastern European Ashkenazi person.
You say people would ask you that, right? Didn't you say talk about that in the book?
Every day of my life.
Didn't you think, what are you talking about? Yeah.
Every day. It's amazing to me now when you think, how politically incorrect it would be to say to someone, you don't look like you're fill in the blank. You don't do that. You don't do that. It's like totally not cool. And yet, it's kind of stunning to me. Really, one day I actually kept a journal, like a log of how many times I was told I didn't look Jewish in a single day.
Like, and who says that? Like, what?
Everyone said it.
I know. I would never think of it, but yeah.
A doctor would say it. Like just all sorts. And there are 2 chapters in the book where I actually recount stories where people, very directly and dramatically, had reactions to.
Yeah, they like telling you who you are, right? Yeah, I know. I was reading. I was like, wait, you're telling so like. it's probably not the most. I mean, it's tiring to remember what people can or cannot say, and some people don't really have filters on a good day anyway. But it is. I can't imagine saying that to somebody ever.
Right. Right. Exactly.
Yeah, but I think that it brings up so many of those conversations. I mean, if you want a book club pick this one up, and I'm sure how many people will pick this book up and think, yeah, I've been meaning to do that test. I am a little curious.
Yeah.
I do want to know things, and then I would imagine you'll be hearing and have been hearing, because people, the galleys have been out for a while. Anything to share about somebody who did decide to venture on a journey because they've read the book, or the essays, or sharing stories with you of their own experience?
I've been hearing stories, and people have certainly been sharing stories about their own experience. I mean, I was pretty private about this, even as I was writing the book. So not a lot of people. I was trying to process it, as I was writing the book, and I didn't feel. I felt that I could write it, but I couldn't talk about it yet.
Yeah, that makes sense. Sure.
And now I feel excited about talking about it, but I felt that way for a long time. So it's really been more recent that people have been sharing stories with me, and there are so many different kinds of stories. There's so many different kinds of family secrets. And I'm actually on top of the book coming out. I'm starting a podcast.
I saw that. February 14th. I saw that about family secrets.
Family secrets, and it came so organically out of. So this is a perfect example. I was on the phone with my friend Sylvia Boorstein, the great Buddhist teacher, and she had she's my dear friend, and she had just read the manuscript of Inheritance, and it prompted her to tell me the story of a family secret of hers. And I was on the other end of the phone, and it was a secret that had nothing to do with my secret. It was a different kind of secret.
Right.
But she's an amazing storyteller, and I was on the other end of the phone, and suddenly I thought, I wish I was recording this. This is so beautiful. I wish I could share it with people. And then a little light bulb went off in my head, and I thought, podcast, family secrets.
I think that's
everybody
awesome.
Has them. Thank you.
And they'll tell you, I assume. I guess otherwise it's pretty low-key kind of podcast if you can. What is your
nobody there's nobody that we've approached, that my producers or I have approached to ask if they would be a guest who said no.
So any kind of secret. I wonder if that gets people thinking. You have to remember what's a secret. Some people aren't very good secret keepers.
Right.
And then I can't wait to hear it. So I just actually subscribed. So it starts February 14th, and it's Family Secrets with Dani Shapiro. I'm just curious about your podcasting too, what the setup is and what you'll be doing. But I will be tuning in and sharing that. That's really cool. Maybe we can do. I have ideas. I'll email you.
Okay, good.
I'll email you off air. But I think that's fascinating, and there's nothing like an organic idea. You must.
Well, that's the thing. That's exactly. This could seem like some marketing strategy. I assure you, it is
it's so cool. And even if it was, who cares? But is Sylvia going to be your guest? Is she going to retell her story?
Yeah. Well, one of the really just things that fell into place because she lives on the West Coast is that. I was talking to this terrific company, How Stuff Works, which is now also iHeartRadio, about partnering with them, and we were having a number of conversations about it around, after I had the idea and after the conversation with Sylvia, and they said, well, why don't we let's record a pilot, let's see what we've got, and Sylvia was coming east, and she was staying with me for 3 days, and
perfect.
So I was like, I asked her, and she said, sure. And so they sent up a sound guy, and we went into my basement, and we hunched over my son's old, playroom, kind of we went into my basement because it was the quietest room in the house. It's,
It's
very
where I
glamorous.
am right now, Dani, right in my basement. That's the only thing we use it for is my podcast, I think.
Right. Yeah, the glamorous world of podcasting.
Yeah.
And we recorded this conversation, and it was just magical. And so she's one of the episodes.
I love that. And the thing is, when I read it on your, people can go to DaniShapiro.com and scroll down on the bottom on the right. It talks about that, and also all of the tour information is there. You'll be on the West Coast quite a bit, it looked like, and just all over the place.
You're going on a 20-city tour. Yeah.
I can't even imagine the stories and the amount of people you'll be like, wait, you could be on my podcast. You could be on.
Right.
Tell me your secrets. Right. There's nothing like, because secrets, I mean, there's a whole sense of really what secrets are and shame attached. And,
well, exactly.
That's telling your own story. Yeah, and telling your own story, so it's
well,
it's
and
your
I think
story.
Because I'm coming at it from having been someone who had such a tremendous secret with health for me, so I think that creates a sense of powerful commonality and intimacy with the people that I'm talking with. I'm not just sort of interested in a clinical way. I'm interested, like we're in this together.
Yeah. I can only imagine the stories that will come out, and the upcoming sequels to Inheritance, and the stories Secrets with Dani Shapiro. I love that family. I mean, there's nothing like a family secret. Like I was saying, I mean, that's at the heart of the novels that I enjoy most, or whether those buried secrets,
and Robin,
how many generations they're buried for, etc.
Well, and my fiction as a novelist, all centered around family secrets, and I didn't know why. Now I know.
Now you know. Yeah, now you know. I am so excited to share this with my readers, and it's Inheritance, a memoir of genealogy, paternity, and love, and nobody writes like you do, Dani. You write it, and I will read it, and I'm really excited and look forward to, at some point, a Rhode Island event. I know it's crazy busy. Visit DaniShapiro.com, and if she is where you are, you go where she is and see her. And this book will give you a lot to think about. Have you had any personal reading time? Any books to share with the audience that you want to suggest?
Oh, yeah, I do. I have been on a little bit of a reading tear lately. I mean, I'm so hungry for it. I'm so I'm walking over to my nightstand.
I know. If I don't have them in front of me, it's so funny. I have to visualize a cover. People are always saying, what are you reading? What are you reading? And I'm like, so many things.
Right. So many things. Right.
So many things. So many.
I recently finished The Friend by Sigrid Nunez.
Oh yeah. Okay. The Friend. Yeah.
I loved it, and I'm almost finished. It's a debut novel, dystopian. Very smart, beautifully written. It's interesting. I have a 19-year-old son, and he's a college freshman, and he's a huge reader. And I take some of my recommendations from him.
I was going to ask how the first year was going. So he just did his first semester, because when we saw you last, he had just gotten into school.
Yeah.
So I'm losing you for just a little bit there. I think
that's because I walked over to my nightstand. So
you walked over to the nightstand. That's right. You walked over so they have a long break and he's still home, because it just can be like a long break, but then it goes so quickly.
Right. Exactly. But so I've been taking some reading recommendations from him. So he recommended A Ling Ma, and then Maria Popova, who is the brainchild behind Brain Pickings, the fantastic curated, website of wisdom, has a book coming out called Figuring.
I'll have to look for that.
Really, really interesting book that's coming out in February. So I'm in the midst of that as well.
I will look for that one. It's likely that it's in a stack here somewhere, so I will see if I have it and pluck it on out. There's so much wonderful reading. Well, I'm glad to know what you're reading or have read, because people always want to know what the writers are reading. And
Right.
And that's great. Yeah, there's nothing like taking a great recommendation from your child, and then you have
I love it.
Even more to talk about, and your son is such a sweetie. I'm so glad to hear.
Oh, thanks.
Oh, you're welcome. And this is so much fun, and I wish you the best journey. I will be staying tuned and looking forward to the podcast, and I'll send you some follow-up. I have a thought. And this is Dani Shapiro and her brand new book, Inheritance. Don't miss it, a memoir of genealogy, paternity, and love. Dani, thank you so much.
Oh, Robin, thanks so much for having me. I always love talking with you, and I do hope I get to come to Rhode Island.